Nathan, if you're ready, we can go ahead.
Okay, welcome. This meeting is now called to order. The roll has been taken. I would like to remind the committee, staff, and our viewing public of the electronic participation policy for virtual meetings. The full corporate policy number 50 regarding electronic and virtual meetings is available online to review. Staff and delegates are reminded to keep their video and microphones off until requested by the chair or members of the committee. All cameras for committee members shall remain on to ensure quorum. In the event of a connection or service interruption that occurs and affects quorum, we may recess for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting will be adjourned. All rules and delegations under the city's procedural bylaw will continue to apply, and all members of the committee participating via online video conference will vote by a physical show of hands. The chair will indicate to leave your hands raised until they have determined the result of the vote. Item number 2 on our agenda is declarations of conflicts of interest. Is there any conflicts of interest that anyone has with the agenda? Dan, go ahead. Mute yourself.
So one of the items on the list is a demolition permit that I have in. My house is listed, so the garage is being demolished, so it has to go through the Heritage Committee. So.
Okay, thank you for declaring that. Hearing none others, then we'll move on. There are no presentations or delegations. So we will move on to item 4.1, which is the notice to demolish an accessory structure at 106 Oak Street. Dan, I invite you to come forward. You have 10 minutes to speak to this application, inclusive of questions.
I guess I don't really need 10 minutes, but so the house is listed on the list of heritage properties in Brantford newly. The garage, I believe, is maybe 1940s, 50s, somewhere in there. It's very structurally unsound, but that's not the reason we're taking it down. We're able to sever the piece of property on the side, and we're going to be building a house on the property. So we're putting in for a demolition permit to demolish the garage. There's not much more to it than that.
Okay. Does any member of the committee have any questions for the delegation? Okay, hearing none, I'll invite Patrick to provide his overview of this item.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members of the Heritage Committee. I'm just going to start sharing my staff presentation. So the item 4.1 on tonight's agenda is the notice of intention to demolish, which was received by the city for 106 Oak Street, as indicated by the applicant. So the property is located at the corner of Oak Street and Walnut Street. It is newly listed on the city's heritage register. It was listed on the register following council's decision on November 23rd. So the proposal is simply just to demolish the detached garage shown in the photo. The existing single detached dwelling will be remaining on the subject property. It is not being, it's not subject to this notice of intention to demolish. And so here we just have a location map showing the property. The single detached dwelling sits in the middle of the lot, which is at the corner of Walnut and Oak Streets. The detached garage is at the southeast end of the property. So 106 Oak Street was added to the register as it met 2 criteria reviewed by the Heritage Register project. So the property predates the incorporation of the city of Brantford, and it's also a representative example of Italianate architecture within the city. So staff reviewed those 2 aspects of the property's cultural heritage value and determined whether the demolition of the garage, which would have a negative impact on that value. As the property is listed but not designated, the effect is that there's a 60-day notice of intention to demolish that's required from the owner, but there's no further controls on the demolition. So after that 60 days, the process would proceed as normal, but the purpose is for committee and council to have a chance to review the proposal and see if the demolition would negatively affect the heritage value. So staff looked at the available historic mapping that we have that shows the city in detail at the building and neighborhood level. So we see on the 1892 bird's eye map of Brantford that it looks that the dwelling is there, or a representation of the dwelling is shown, but we don't see any other structures on the property. There's no sign of a garage, sheds, barns, or other structures. And in 1919, fire insurance map was prepared for the city, and so it includes 106 Oak Street. What we do see is the 2-story brick single detached dwelling, and we see a number of accessory structures on the building, sheds, outbuildings, but none of those buildings actually corresponds to the current single detached garage, the accessory garage. Looking at the heritage inventory, we do see a permit in March of 1939, and that was for the demolition of a barn on the property and then the construction of a detached garage. And so what this shows is clearly this structure was not in existence before the incorporation of the city like the dwelling was. So the detached garage does not contribute to that aspect of the property's heritage value. The other factor for consideration was the representative nature of the building's architecture. So in Brantford, Italianate buildings tend to have features like round or segmental arch windows, a series of bays. If they're symmetrical, it's a pattern of 3 or 5 bays. We also see Italianate structures such as 106 Oak, where it's actually 2 bays that are asymmetrical, but it's the entranceway or window on one side and then a bay window on the other. Another common feature of Italianate architecture is the sort of shallow pitched roof with wide overhanging eaves. In this case, we look at the garage, we see that comparatively, the pitch of the roof is proportionately taller than the resultant pitch gives to the house. The eaves don't overhang nearly as much as the eaves of the dwelling do. And the style, while asymmetric, it's rather plain and functional. It doesn't quite have the same proportions and layout as the single detached dwelling. Brick is another common feature of Italianate buildings. And again, while the garage is brick, it doesn't quite match the sort of the criteria that align with Italianate architecture. So while it's a functional garage, it is not representative of Italianate architecture. The dwelling, on the other hand, is. So the loss of the garage will not negatively impact the cultural heritage value of 106 Oak Street. So as the garage will be removed, but the dwelling will remain, staff reviewed the matter and are of the opinion that the demolition of the garage will facilitate a severance and intensification in the neighborhood, but it will not negatively affect the cultural heritage value or interest. So on that basis, staff are recommending simply that this report 2021-767, is just received for information by the Brantford Heritage Committee. Staff will be taking a similar report to Committee of the Whole and Council in January, simply providing this information for Council's consideration, but similarly, we have no recommended actions at this time. After the 60-day period required under the Heritage Act ends, and the demolition can proceed as it normally would, but for the listing on the register. This is actually the first notice of intention to demolish that the city is processed following the Heritage Register project. So if, for example, we had evaluated the proposal and found that there was an impact to the cultural heritage value of the property, this would be a time where the Brantford Heritage Committee and Council could consider that information and determine if designation is warranted. Based on the analysis and the research we were able to do in this application, we do not feel there's a negative impact, and so we're not recommending any action. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions of the Heritage Committee.
Any questions for Patrick? based on this presentation. Ed, go ahead.
I don't have any problems with this garage, but is there, when the new house designs come in, is there an equal kind of vetting process to make sure that the new designs fit into a heritage area?
Yeah, so through the chair, so through the adoption of the city's new official plan, the city also adopted a urban design manual, and so that actually has specific design guidelines for existing neighborhoods,
Okay.
as well as specific design guidelines for development in historic areas. So that will be addressed through the site plan application, which hasn't come forward yet. Right now, it was just the severance and minor variances to the lot, and that's what triggered the demolition.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Patrick? Okay, so with that, we are ready for a motion. The motion in staff's report is that, the staff report titled Notice of Intention to Demolish an Accessory Structure at 106 Oak Street, which is a list property on the City of Brantford's Heritage Register, be received. Any discussion or comments? We need a mover and a seconder for the motion. Dan? Oh, okay, hands galore now. Okay, so we had Dan and then seconded by Rob. Any discussion or comments that people want? No? Okay, seeing none, then we'll call the vote on the motion that be received. All those in favor, hands raised, please. Thank you. Hands down. Okay, Rob's got a bit of a delay on us tonight. And Lise, would you care to unmute yourself? Lise?
In favor.
Okay, thank you. I declare it carried then. Thank you. We'll now move on to 4.2, the proposed alteration to 152 Brant Ave. I would ask that Sarah St. Amand come forward to speak to the application. Sarah was here not that long ago, so I'll remind her she is here. Oh, there she is.
Hi, guys.
I'll remind Sarah that she has 10 minutes of her presentation, including questions. So go ahead.
Okay, so I was here probably, I think it was in May, if you recall, and I am reapplying for a different sign. The signage that was prepared or made for me, it wasn't really to my standards, so I felt that it needed to be readdressed. So Patrick, I believe you have the presentation. So I'm proposing quite a bit different of a sign because I felt the one I had didn't really represent my business as I was hoping. So if you have a look at this is what I'm proposing. Unfortunately, where you see orange would actually be a metallic gold. But on the screen, and we can't obviously make it look metallic. We're looking to, I'm wanting to sort of represent a historical factor because my home, my office, which is was a historical home. I think that some of the wrought iron works well to represent the historical factor and also keeping some form of lighting as well. So this is what I'm proposing. To, of course, go with the look of Brant Ave as well. Brant Ave being a busy street, I obviously want to get some awareness, but still keep it tasteful on the street. So there would be no, obviously, like lighting or backlit or anything that would be jarring to the eye. Nothing that is fluorescent or anything along those lines. So very tastefully done. Black and gold is my color scheme. And this is kind of what I'm looking to do. If anybody has any comments or questions, happy to answer that.
Okay, anyone have any questions for the delegation? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Sarah.
Mhm.
I'll now turn it over to Patrick for his brief overview of this item.
Sure. So this is a heritage permit application HA0921 for 152 Brant Avenue. As noted by the applicant, this application is for the construction of a two business sign at 152 Brant Avenue. Property, just a view of the property from Brant Avenue. Again, this has been here earlier this year for a two-post ground sign. The property is located just north of Bourne Crescent on Brant Avenue. So the applicant's proposal is a ground sign. The material will be metal, painted a dark gray. The design details at the base and near the property address will be a light gray that is matched to the existing trim on the porch of the building. As the applicant noted, the wording is PVC in dimension, three-dimensional and in gold color with external coach light style lighting proposed for the sides. The Brant Avenue Heritage Conservation District study and the sign bylaw recommend a two-post style ground sign. However, the sign as proposed by the applicant meets all the guidelines, all the setbacks required of two-post ground size signs, and it stays within the maximum sizes that are set out in the district study and the sign bylaw. So while a interpretation of a traditional post sign, the side post with the coach style lighting, and the as noted here, sort of a radiator cover or a wrought iron grill look, really carries that sort of inspiration of a two-post sign. On the basis of the material being an appropriate material, the colors are neutral and muted, which is recommended by the district study. The use of 3D lettering is similar to what you might see on a carved wooden sign, or if the individual metal letters were affixed to the sign. So generally, while a slightly modern look, the sign complies with all the guidelines that are set out in the district study. The applicant is proposing to install the sign in the front lawn. The previous sign would have been farther south on the property. This sign will be located closer to the front walkway. The sign bylaw requires a setback of 1 meter, so the applicant is proposing to keep the same setback as previously approved. So again, the sign as proposed complies with all the setback requirements. At this time, the applicant was looking for a second business to go in the building. As we understand, that business has not, the new tenant has not been leased to yet. So until that time, there will be just a small advertising spot on the sign that just gives an information about what the applicant's business is. That will be the location of a future business's sign. So having reviewed the proposed signage, staff are of the opinion that it meets the intent of the sign bylaw and the Heritage Conservation District. The coach style lighting is frequently seen in historical districts for street lighting and can be seen on historic homes. It represents ambient lighting, which is appropriate under the district study and the sign bylaw. The applicant has indicated that another possibility may be for low ground mounted spot lighting. Well, again, that is another appropriate form of lighting within the district study. So on that basis, staff recommend that the heritage permit application be approved. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions of the committee.
Thank you, Patrick. Any members of the committee have questions? Rob, go ahead.
Yes, Patrick, I noticed on the sign, the section that says interior design, which will be allocated to the other business we don't know of yet. When that happens, does the sign have to have another permit for the lettering and the design characteristics of that portion come through again?
For something small where it's just playing with the existing, like the sign shape, dimensions, location would not be changing. staff would review that as a minor change to the design of the sign rather than a full heritage permit. However, if at any point a change in location, a change in size based on that sign area were to occur, we would have to review it against the sign bylaw. So if it complied, it would not meet a heritage permit. However, if there was an increase, there was any change that required an actual comprehensive review against the sign bylaw, then that would require a heritage permit.
Okay, Rob, does that answer your question sufficiently? Okay. Any other members? Oh, Dan Brown, go ahead.
I guess it's more of a comment than a question. To me, the sign almost looks too modern for Brant Ave. It almost seems like it's you'd see it in like a new strip mall type sign. After driving down Brant Ave today, just to look at the different signs, to me, it doesn't seem like it fits in with the neighborhood. I guess it's more of a comment than a question.
Okay. Any other committee members have any questions then for Patrick? Oh, Dan Brown, or sorry, Councillor McCurry.
Chair, thank you very much. Yeah, I don't disagree with Mr. Brown. Patrick, I wonder if you could indicate the specific wording in the sign bylaw which requires a two-post sign.
Well, I'll just pull up the sign bylaw on my screen and just to avoid paraphrasing. And
3.1.
yes, the post signage, so per the bylaw, it's Schedule B, Section 3.1. So post signage, two posts should be used wherever possible to identify activities within a building. But the language, sorry.
Is that possible here?
It could be used, but it's not an obligation. It's not shall.
So I thought we had, I thought we'd reviewed our bylaw and got rid of all the weasel words. I guess we haven't, eh?
So through the chair, so this is the language straight from the Brant Avenue Heritage Conservation District study.
Yeah, okay. So that's from the study. With respect to our sign bylaw, is there a specific notice about signs in the district in the sign bylaw?
So with respect to the district, what we see is that it has the general guidelines for proper signs on heritage properties, and then just sets out the same regulations from within the district study with respect to Brant Avenue. So it's the section would be Section 3, Brant Avenue Heritage Conservation District, and individually designated properties, and then 3.1 is post signage. There's no further like a sort of a guideline or policy under that section that would relate to the properties. It just goes into the regulations using that
Okay,
one.
So the language then is should be used where possible.
Correct.
Okay. Can you think of a circumstance where it would not be possible?
I would have to review the district properties to see if there was one where it truly could not be used.
It might be the case if it was a grandfathering sign, right?
Well, in that case, the sign may be considered non-complying or legal non-complying until such time as a new application comes in. It could be perhaps where a building had a setback of 0 meters from the property and you could not physically fit a ground sign. I think we had a permit in for, I believe, 72 Brant Avenue, while a very modern building, I believe the setback there was 0 meters. So physically a ground sign could not have been put on in front of the building.
Okay, so strictly to meet the language of our guidelines, if it's possible, it should be, if it's possible, a post sign should be used.
Yes.
And yet we're recommending to approve this, which is not a post sign in a circumstance where it could be used.
So Staff reviewed it and it matched all other guidelines and criteria within the sign bylaw and district study with respect to materials, colors, size, setbacks, lighting options. All was chosen to match the colors were chosen to match those found on the building. And by virtue of having the post lighting or the coach lighting proposed, the sort of grating radiator grills or wrought iron reference, staff felt that, you know, while modern, it does call out and have a sympathetic look to a post sign, save and except that there's not a gap between the bottom of the sign and the ground.
So except for the fact that it's not a 2-post sign, even though it could be used, it meets all other requirements, save for its basic construction.
Yes, it's
its
a
basic format.
Yes.
So aside from its lack of the form specified, it's perfectly okay.
In terms of all the obligatory regulations through the chair, yes, it does comply with all obligatory regulations, all setbacks, sizes, colors, lighting.
And the only other sign I can think of that would not be a post sign would be the one on BCI. Is there another sign of this nature that we've approved in the last 5 years?
Through the chair, I can't think of a sign approved in the last 5 years. However, I believe there's the digital messaging center at BCI, which Councillor you referenced. I believe there is also a similar digital messaging center just south on the street, at least one or two. There's a retirement facility and a funeral home. I believe they both have digital messaging centers, which those being internally illuminated or having, again, that digital messaging component would not comply with the sign bylaw.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I do remember that meeting where we amended the sign bylaw, and the motion from council was that all shoulds should be replaced with shalls. And it seems that 3.1 did not get changed to shall. Tamara, you had your hand up for a question.
Sorry, yeah, thank you, Patrick. Sorry, just along the same line as Councilor McCreary's questions, I guess what I'm confused about is how the base is constructed. Like, is that going to be, it shows as metal and then painted, I guess? So is that where the 2 posts are in the ground and then, but then it's enclosed all the way around, like wrapped in metal, or is that a concrete base on it? Like, I guess I'm confused about what my color schemes are here.
So the base, that light gray, would be metal. That would be the exterior. As to the interior construction, if it is truly 2 posts or if there's a 3rd post like that I cannot speak to. That's a matter of just building code to make sure the foundation would hold the sign in place, you know, from wind or other exposure. I believe talking to the applicant prior or during the submission process, that the foundation would be concrete, and that's what the posts internally, the structural posts, however many there are, would be placed into poured concrete, and that'd be the foundation for the sign. But the exterior is a cladding, a metal cladding.
Does that answer your question there, Tamara?
Yeah, I guess it just seems like, yeah, it's like a very tall metal sign. I guess that's my observation anyway.
Okay. Any other questions for Patrick before we get to a motion? Okay, seeing none, then we're at the time where I would entertain a motion. The recommendation in staff's report is that it be approved. Hearing some of the discussion, I don't know that, I don't know what the committee feels about that. So if the committee would like to move that motion or any other motion, we need a mover and a seconder.
I'll move it.
Motion to move approval by Ed, seeking a seconder. If no other member wants to second that motion, then we need another motion that can be moved and seconded.
Through the chair, if I may just speak to the matter of the moving a motion or amending. Through the authority delegated to staff and the Heritage Committee, if at any point the heritage permit is denied, this would automatically have to go to a committee of the whole and council for a final decision. Staff and the committee can only, through delegated authority, approve the application. Heritage Committee could, however, amend the motion and defer this for one meeting, which, given the comments made by the committee, the applicant could consider a revision coming back in January, and then the committee could make a decision at that time.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Councilor McCurry.
Chair, thank you. I think I'd like to move a deferral that this be returned to the Heritage Committee for the January meeting, and that in the interim, staff undertake 2 courses of action. Firstly, a review be made of the direction given to staff with respect to wording changes to the bylaw, namely should being changed to shall, as the chair recalls, I recall as well. And the second, I think, would be a review of all 2-post signage along Brant Avenue that have been approved in the last 5 years. So there's 2 courses of action. Number 1, review the language and the wording where direction was given for that to be changed. And secondly, to review precedents for this type of a sign. And that'll require a seconder and to put this on the floor in place of the resolution that was suggested.
Councilor McCurry is seeking a seconder. Would anyone like to second that? Okay.
I'll second that.
Dan, I saw Dan's hand first, so we'll go with Dan. Any comments or on the amended motion, I guess, by Councilor McCurry? Ed, go ahead. You're muted, sorry, Ed.
So I'm just trying to understand the criticism of this design is that there isn't a white space at the bottom to sort of reflect the 2 posts actually holding it up. Is that the real issue here?
Okay.
I'm just confused when you look at some of the signs, particularly on the new, like the signs there, I'm thinking, how different is this? Is it 2 posts? Like I said, if there's a white space under that sign, would that then be considered a 2-post sign?
Okay.
We're making a technical distinction here. I'm just trying to understand what a 2-post sign is.
Yeah, that's okay. Is that the end of your comments then?
Yep.
Okay. I saw another hand. I thought I saw Tamara's hand as well. Is that right? No. Okay, maybe it was Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
There we go. So when I think of a 2-post sign, I don't think of a full concrete poured base. I think of 2 posts and not a white space, but an open space between the 2 posts at the bottom where everything is above that. And I still stick to that. It's a modern looking sign that wouldn't fit into Brant Ave.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Councilor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, I would reiterate that we've demonstrated considerable latitude in the heritage districts in the last decade or so with respect to lighting and color palettes and so on. But Mr. Bernanke's inquiry is quite correct. And Mr. Brown's answer is quite correct that the signs were, the bylaw was quite explicit that the sign was to be constructed of 2 posts with the sign hung on the post as it would have been, 100 years ago. We've shown latitude with respect to design and, as I said, with color palette and all that type of stuff, and some lighting even. But as Mr. Brown said, this is a modern sign. And I don't believe that it meets the spirit of what was intended with respect to signage in this heritage district. And I think we really need to be careful that, because we are the, we're the arbiters and the guardians of the district designation here. And I think we have to honor the intent of what was written. And as the chair said, I think we really need to make sure that what was intended by council with respect to the wording of the regulations is honored as well.
Okay, any other comments before we vote? Want to make sure we give people an opportunity. Okay, so the question is on the deferral.
Sorry, Nathan, to interrupt.
Yep, go ahead.
Before you go ahead with the vote, I just want to confirm what it is that you guys are actually voting on. You're looking, and possibly Councillor McCreary may need to clarify again here. You're looking for review of the two-post signage, and then you're looking for a review of the language in the bylaw and the study. Is that correct?
Yes, looking for number one, a review or a recap of signage installs in the Brantford Heritage District in the last 5 years. That would be point number one. Point number two would be a review of the language, specifically should and shall, and the direction given by council to make those changes. And that's probably something that the clerk and planning will have to review, because it's our recollection that that direction was given but was not captured.
Okay, and further that this item be deferred until the next meeting?
Yes, until the next meeting, correct.
Thank you, Councillor McCreary.
Okay, so everyone's clear what we are voting on? Yes, okay. I will call the question now. All those in favor? Thank you. Hands down. All those opposed? Thank you. Lise, can you please indicate your vote?
In favor is in support of the deferral, correct?
Yes.
In favor.
Okay, thank you. I declare the motion carried then. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to consent items. Item 5.1 is the Brantford Heritage Committee minutes. The minutes from our last meeting were included in our agenda package. The motion would be that the minutes be approved. Moved by Tamara. Is that a motion? Yes, okay. Seeking a seconder. Dan Brown, I think I saw your hand first. Any discussion or errors or omissions that need to be corrected in the minutes? No, seeing none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Thank you. Hands down. Lise, can you please indicate your vote?
Favor.
Thank you. I declare that carried. Next, we have a list of proposed meeting dates for next year. Would Patrick or clerks want to speak to our dates? Is it the same as this year, or are we changing a date? I believe not. We're on the last.
Sorry, through the chair, and then Lisa or Julia, feel free to jump in if necessary. But so the intent is that the new dates follow the same pattern as the current, where we are targeting the last, or actually that's right, the fourth Monday of the month. That generally works out the last Monday. However, 2022 is an election year. So in September, we have revised the date. It's moved 1 week earlier, and that aligns with the final council schedule ahead of the election. So there's no October meeting, And then we resume the regular fourth Monday schedule for November and align with the final council cycle for December.
Okay, thank you. So we need a mover and a seconder to approve our meeting dates. Moved by Jamie, seconded by Tamara. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Lise, can you please indicate your
Favor.
vote? Thank you. I declare that approved. Projects and updates. Request for assistance regarding the Heyman family. Patrick?
Sure. So staff is just following up on a direction that was passed by council. The council is looking for historical information on the Heyman family, which is an early family that settled in what is now Ward 2. And this was, I believe, put forward by Councillor Utley. So in this resolution, staff and the Heritage Committee were directed to research the family and report back. So staff have been talking to Councillor Utley. He has received some additional information, which he provided to me. And so just at this time, we're following up with the Heritage Committee and asking for any assistance. If you're able to conduct some research and pass it on to me, we are targeting the March council cycle. So we'll have an update to Heritage Committee at the end of February, which will then lead into the March COW Planning and Administration, or Committee of the Whole, sorry, Planning and Administration and March Council. And that was just in discussion with Councillor Utley with that date. So if anything can be found, please feel free to forward it. We're looking through our internal records, but as you know, we saw with last year, year, there was quite a bit of local restrictions, whether we stay-at-home orders or the the color-coded sort of restrictions in place to try and mitigate the pandemic. So we couldn't access certain areas like the library, or outside sources were closed down and not accepting visitors. Potentially like the museum, it makes it difficult to do it in-person research. But
Councilor McCurry, did you have a question about that?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Patrick, I'm not sure if you've been in touch with the person who is related to the Heymans who initiated this request some time ago. Do you have his contact info?
Good Chair, if memory serves, Councillor McCurry did, Councillor Utley provided me with some of the additional information that was sent to him. I think it was by this family member.
Okay.
I will check my records. However, if you don't mind me verifying through you, I might send you an email just to confirm that I have the right name, the same name you have, and then.
Yeah, super. And we can include Nathan in that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also have an update on our ever moving forward Heritage Register project. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, so just a second verbal update. So we're happy to report that at Committee of the Whole Planning and Administration last week, that was December 14th. So Committee of the Whole received the report recommending that the Heritage Grant Program, the pilot period be extended with updates to the bylaw and the function of the program. The report was not separated for discussion and was approved unanimously by Council, or by Committee of the Whole. So it will actually go to Council tomorrow night, where we anticipate ratification. And so that in the new year, we'll start working on the advertising material to announce the extension. We'll have the meeting with the Heritage Education Subcommittee to work on some flyers that can be mailed to properties. But we are looking forward to the approval, hopefully tomorrow night. And that's what I should also say is just concurrent with our third Heritage Grant application to the original bylaw. So those are moving in tandem, and we will be able to administer the Heritage Grant application once the new bylaw is approved. The existing bylaw stays in place until that application is completed. So we've made sure to make sure everything can function smoothly.
Okay. That was for the grant program. Did you have any, my chair's roadmap says Heritage Register. Did you have any comments?
Oh, so did we say Heritage Register on the roadmap? Sorry, I apologize. It did mean the Heritage Grant Program.
Okay. Perfect. just wanted to confirm that you were reporting the right stuff.
No, well, on the Heritage Register as a verbal update, we are working through the next phase. So we will update the Heritage Committee at the January meeting with the date of PIC. So there you go. That's 3 verbal updates for the committee.
Okay, thank you. So subcommittees, there are no subcommittees meeting right now, so there are no updates, there are no resolutions or notices of motion. So with, Councilor McCurry, do you have something else to add before we adjourn?
Mr. Chair, yes, and my apologies. I should have mentioned this to you last week before the agenda came out. There are 2 things I'd like to raise with the committee in sort of a subcommittee way. Committee members may recall there was a time when we used to bestow heritage awards on folks in this community in a number of capacities for restoration and activities and so on. If I recall, Heritage Month is in February still. And Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering if you and I could head up sort of an impromptu ad hoc committee in the month of January to bring recommendations to this committee in January so that we could give awards in February.
Yeah, we can talk about doing that as well.
Yeah.
I know that there is, we also have to develop the criteria for those heritage awards as well.
We do
So-
have it somewhere. Matt Renier's probably has it in his files at home.
Okay.
And the other point I wanted to raise, probably none of you remember Ann Westaway. Ann Westaway was the Heritage Committee chair when I was on the committee back in the 90s. She's been gone a number of years now, and council is at long last going to recognize her contributions to the community by naming some open space in the first ward after her. It's going to be called, I believe, Ann Westaway Meadows. That's in our that's in the agenda package this month, and hopefully that will happen during 2022. And Mr. Chair, just a word to the wise. Perhaps years from now, you'll have some open space named after you.
Well, we'll see if I stick around enough to make as much of an impact as Ann Westaway did. Okay, thank you for those comments on subcommittee updates. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Tamara, and wish everyone a safe and happy New Year. And look forward to seeing you all in January. Take care and stay healthy, everyone.
Happy New Year.